Well, welcome to another edition of Intentional Conversations. On Intentional Conversations, we seek to interview leaders in men's ministries to help men grow spiritually and help leaders and pastors to reach the men in today's culture, oftentimes discussing issues that men face every day. The program is where a men's ministry leader interviews leaders in men's ministry. Hi, I'm your host, Mike Sandel with Cape Fear Men. Thank you for joining us today. When someone says men's ministry, what do you think? Do you think of it as a bunch of men getting together to eat, have breakfast, or just hang out? Or do you think of it as a men's church club? So what are your thoughts when you hear the words men's ministry? We're going to spend some time today discussing men's ministry, or ministry to men, as I like to say, and hearing what we should be doing as men in the church. Today, I have with me Rex Tignor, the founder of Man Up Ministries, and I've known Rex here now, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, something like that, and we've become pretty good partners in ministry and talking to him. Rex is retired from Henrico County up in Virginia as a construction inspector, but his part and his passion is helping men unlock their God-given potential and assisting churches in building an effective ministry to men. He's authored a number of books, and maybe we'll talk about some of them today. And currently, I will say this, because Rex is going to be one of our keynote speakers at 2 of our Iron Sharpens Irons conferences here in North Carolina in September and October. And we'll talk about that. But he is also serving as an Iron Sharpens Iron ministry training coordinator. So we'll talk a little bit about that also, probably sometime during the program. But Rex, thank you for joining me on the program.
Yes. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, good. It's always good to talk to you. We have a lot of conversations and share a lot of thoughts about what it is, what it means, and what we need to do to reach into men's lives. But Rex, I want the people, our listeners, to get to know you a little bit better today, and not just from a superficial standpoint. I want us to dive down a little bit into the spiritual aspect of who you are. Is there a verse that maybe is very meaningful to you, or one that God's been speaking into your life that you wouldn't mind sharing with us, and tell us a little bit about why that verse is so powerful in your life right now?
Okay. Yeah. As you know, COVID's been a rough time for a lot of guys, a lot of men, a lot of ministries, and a lot of churches. And the verse that has come up, and actually in September on the 25th, I'm going to be talking about part of this verse, and it's called Awaken the Warrior. And the verse is found in 2 Samuel 10, and it's verse 11. Mm-hmm. And what God's really been speaking to me about is in that verse, Joab, David, and them are getting ready to get attacked, and David sends Joab out. Well, Joab sees the enemies lined up in the front and lined up in the back. And he turns to his brother, and he says, let's go fight. And so they go out, and before they go fight, Joab tells him, he says, if they are too strong for you, I will come and rescue you. But if they're too strong for me, you come and rescue me. And I think we've got a lot of guys today that just really need that verse. They've been hit hard. They've lost jobs, family issues, family crisis. Things have just come up over and over again. And we have a lot of guys today that are just absolutely struggling because they don't have anybody that will come and fight with them or for them.
Absolutely. So
that's kind of where I'm at over the last 18 months or so, just kind of into that verse about, God is still on the throne. God is still in charge, no matter what it looks like, how it looks. But here comes Satan, COVID, and his isolated men. Mm-hmm. And being isolated as a man is not a good thing.
Well, the scripture's pretty clear that we're not to be isolated as men.
Yes. Yeah, one of my favorite talks to do is You Can't Make It to the Roof Alone, about the guy in Mark 2, where, remember, his 4 friends carried the one guy to the roof. Mm-hmm. They tried different avenues to get him to Jesus, and none of them worked. And finally, they just carried him to the roof. And 3 guys couldn't have lowered him.
Right.
2 guys couldn't have lowered him. It took 4 guys.
Yep.
And it's awful nice to have guys around you that has your back and you have theirs as well. And that's what we're missing today in a lot of our churches and men's ministry.
It is. It is. One of the verses I know you and I have talked about it quite a bit. One of the verses that I quote a lot to men, and they've never really heard it because they're always hearing Proverbs 27:17, which says, "Iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another." But the verse I like to quote often, and it comes from out of Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verses 9 and 10, where it says, "Two men are better than one because they bring a greater reward for their labor. For if one falls down, there's another there to lift him up. And if a man doesn't have another to lift him up, what would be unto him because of the fact he's alone? He doesn't have somebody." That's a paraphrase, but that's what it's saying. And so yeah, it is very, very, very needed. Well, Rex, tell us about the time you came to Christ, when you began to realize your need for Christ and you're actually surrendering your life to Christ. Can you share a little bit about that to us?
Yeah, I was, I just totally wrecked my life. I used to play ball, and then I started playing softball and played on some major teams and things like that. And was just totally, and all of a sudden one day we had a child, and my wife looked at me and says, "I want this child to grow up in church." So, I did what every other man should do or does. And he got on the internet, and back when the dial-up internet, so it took forever to do this. But
Yeah.
I did a search on churches that had softball teams. And I went to a church just because they had a softball team and played on them because, it was just a way to get some swings in through the week and things like that, waiting for a tournament to come up. And God started to move in that team. And then, you always hear pastors, the call of God. Well, I was still living on the other side. I was just doing my church thing. I like to say that I was doing the spare tire Christianity, where you just keep Jesus in the trunk in case you need him sometime. So I'm sitting here, and so all of a sudden one day my phone rings, and it was from this other church. And this church was a pretty stout church as far as, well known through the country and everything else. And the guy called me and he says, "Hey, we want you to come and play for us." And I'm like, "Dude, you know me. I don't fit the church team." And so I just wasn't ready. And then the following year he called me back, and something inside just said yes. Well, I didn't know this, but every year they had a deal with the pastor where they took a guy like me and brought him in. And they built friendships with me. They showed me what it was to live and what it looked like to be a man and things like that. They invited me to men's groups and things. So they went to this, a bunch of them were getting together, and they were going to this thing called Promise Keepers in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'll never forget it. And so we got there, and, the music starts out. And what I really enjoyed about Promise Keepers is how they would build slow through Friday night, so it wasn't over intimidating. It wasn't overboard or anything like that. And, something just hit me on Friday night, and I was like, I went back to the hotel room, and I was talking with the guy I was rooming with, and we were just chatting. And I just said, "Okay, God, if you're really for real, just show me something." And that Saturday during the day, they just started it up. And Reggie Dabbs, who I'm going to be with, and
Reggie's going to be with us October 2nd down here.
Yes, Reggie took the platform, and Reggie was telling his story, and I was like, God, if you can do that with a Reggie, what can you do with me?
Yeah.
And so then my whole total focus changed, and they did an altar call, and it was just an amazing moment, watching this. And it was so many guys that was turning their life around that the fire marshal actually had to get on stage and tell everybody to stop, which was really, really cool. And
Well, that's just amazing that God was moving that much in that auditorium.
Yes.
And
Yeah, I've never, I've been to a lot of other men's events and things like that, and I've seen God do some amazing things. But
yeah.
that particular day was like no other I've ever seen, and so that's kind of been my journey. And then after I got turned my life around and things like that, I got involved in men's ministry and doing things, and I was bumped into a guy one day, and he said, you have a heart for men's ministry. He said, how about come and be my men's ministry director? And I was like, do what? He said, yeah. He said, I want you to oversee 70 churches and help churches build programs to reach men like you,
Yeah.
and I'm not one of these guys that are going to beat you over the head with the Bible or the King James Bible. I'm not one of these that's going to pull punches. I'm just one of these guys that's just going to make it simple for you. You know, Reggie made it simple. Other guys in my life has just made it simple for me. And that's what I want to do. And so as I was overseeing men's ministry, I started to go get my minister's license and went to school and got educated beyond my own intelligence, and just one thing after another. And so one day I had to sit before a board of men, and so they started asking me questions, and I started answering questions like talk about healing. And I told them what God had done in my back. I blew the disc in my back and they were going to have surgery, and I had 12 men that laid hands on me and they just prayed, and I've never had this experience. I've never felt this thing. But today, as of today, I've never had a needle or a knife or anything stuck in my back. It's just totally a miracle by God. And so they wanted me to be quoting all this Bible scriptures. And like I said earlier, that's not me. I mean, I read it, I know it, I learn it. Every day you learn something. I don't care how many times you read it.
Right.
And so they sent me out of the room. They brought me back up, and these were friends of mine now that were sitting on the board. They knew me, and they looked at me and said, "We don't feel you're biblically sound enough at this time to get your license." And I'm like, "What?" And I said, "Oh, you wanted me to tell you Isaiah 53 and Ephesians 2:8 and 9 and Psalms 139. And they said, "Well, yeah, that's what we really wanted you to tell us." And I go, and I had my Bible with me, and I've got one laying on my table here, but I held up my Bible and I says, "Men," I said, "if God can't believe what's going on in my life, they're never going to believe this book right here." I got in the car and I had a 45-minute ride home. You know what Satan can do with your mind in 45 minutes?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. I called my wife and I said, "Hey, I didn't get it." And I was mad. I mean, I was mad. All that effort, all that time, all of that stuff that I put in. And so she just, "Boy, it'll be okay." And that is not what I wanted to hear. I can tell you. So now I'm even madder. So I'm riding down interstate and I pop over the hill and I see this sign says Airport Drive. I'll never forget it. It's the only time, but it was like God sat up in the back seat and he said, "I never told you to get it. Watch what I'm going to do without it."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand any of it at the time. Didn't make sense to me at the time or anything like that. And then as time goes on, God puts this guy, Dan Erickson, in my life. Dan walked in when everybody else walked out. That's what I've learned a true friend is that guy that walks in when everybody else is walking out.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan just poured his life and his heart into me, and just God started opening up doors to speak nationally, to speak locally, to speak everywhere. And the cool part is that on Fridays when I go get on the airplanes or wherever, which I haven't in over the last year, but a couple of times, but I get off that very exit, Airport Drive.
How about that?
And it's like God and I get to have a pep rally every Friday, every other Friday. And it's like, go get them. This is what I called you to, go get them. And
how about that?
It's just an amazing journey, and how God can take somebody without a college degree that was told by guys, you're not good enough, where God says, if I had picked my disciples that way, I probably wouldn't have had any. And he puts you on platforms, and he puts you in rooms to do seminars, and the emails you get, the stories that you get, the chances to pray for guys that you get, it's mind blowing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just mind blowing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it is. And I'm looking forward to being with you again. You and I have worked on a couple of conferences before, and I'm looking to be with you this coming fall. Actually, we're going to be doing 3 conferences together, and two as I, and then one for the North Carolina Baptist on Mission men's ministry, and we're really looking forward to that. We're going to have a busy September and October.
Busy September, a lot of driving.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really am, Rex. Tell us about Man Up Ministries, though. What is Man Up Ministries, and how did that all come about?
Well, I was doing some stuff for Dan Erickson, which is People Matter Ministries, which he's passed away now, and that's a whole nother cool story we'll get into at a later date. But God just put on my heart that name, and I didn't do anything with it. I was just doing stuff for Dan, and God kept saying Man Up Ministries, and being hard headed. And I know nobody listening to this is probably ever hard headed. So
Well, I know I'm not hard headed. I can tell you that. I mean,
right.
Ask my wife; she'll tell you.
Yes. So I'm in Florida. We're getting ready to do an Iron Sharpens Iron conference, and I'm standing there talking to this guy, and over his left shoulder there was a seminar named Man Up. And again, it was that little Holy Spirit nudge said, if you don't take it, I will give it to someone else.
Wow.
So I came back the next Monday morning, went in, got the name, set up, got the 501(c)(3) set up with Ministry Alliance. And it's been a journey ever since then. And if you go to the website, you look and you see the books and things like that, there's several books there. You'll notice most of the books are written with other guys' names on them. Okay. I've learned in ministry, very rarely do I ever do anything alone. Okay. The names that you see on the boot camp book, they're the guys that have went through 2 years of boot camp with me. That the first year they went through boot camp, the second year they helped me teach it. So to me, if I'm going to coach you, if I'm going to minister you, if I'm going to mentor you, you're going to have to put some skin in the game. You're just not, the lessons that you're learning, the lessons that you're getting, the lessons that God's showing you, you're going to have to use them. You're going to have to come along and teach with me. You're going to have to do something. Okay. So I told these guys, I said, I want each of you to go through and pick out the lesson that really impacted your life the most. And that's how the boot camp book came about. The Living Out of the Rut book came out is because I was sitting on an airplane and God gave me the session called Living Out of the Rut, because that's what I live my life. I live my life in the rut, stayed in it. It's every time I try to get out, I spun the wheels. So I did that session in Washington, and here's the joke is I had 3 hours on an airplane. So I'm sitting there and I just get the nudge to start writing the book. And you got to understand, guys, I'm not an English major. I have no clue. And I got back home and I was like, okay, now what am I going to do with this? And I had a business card laying on my table beside my chair. I looked over it and I called this guy, Jeff Friend, and I says, hey, I need somebody to help me with this. He goes, okay. And this guy's an editor. He writes and things like that for Christian magazines. So that's how that book came about. And like I said, it's just, I'm getting ready to put up boot camp on the website for the 2021 conference season fall, which is with you. I think I'm not sure when the web guy is getting ready to put it up, but it will actually become a free download with a code. And the code is Man Up 2021. So if you have that code, once it gets up, you can go in and put that code in there and you can download boot camp for free. So
Good.
So
So
I'll give that code out. I'll be giving that code out at the conferences in
okay,
September as well.
okay, okay.
Yep.
So when do you expect it to come up on the website?
My guess is somewhere in June, mid-June, something
Okay,
like that. It should
okay,
come up. Yeah.
okay.
We're just getting ready to get geared up for for the fall. So just,
Yeah,
I'm not one of these where I want to spend a lot of time at a table. I'd rather spend time with the guys.
yeah, yeah,
So I wanted to do something that was, that they could have. So
yeah. That's so important to spend time with them, to just stand there with them, and one of the things that I encourage a lot of guys is don't be behind the tables, be in front of the tables and
absolutely.
talk to them and connect with the guys, because that's one of the things I like about the conferences you and I do, Rex, is the fact that um, we can interact with the guys very easily. We're not on stage, and then when we're not, we're behind the scenes, so to speak. We're out there with them. We're singing with them, we're worshiping with
Yep.
them, or we're praying with them, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
And it just thrills my soul just to be there and see guys get it when they really
Yes.
get it. Because
Right.
a friend of ours in ministry, with men's ministry, Jim Ramos, he always says this. He said, "When men win, when men get it, everybody wins." And
Yes.
that is so true, so
So
true.
true.
Yeah. So what you got in the works right now? Anything else in particular?
Just getting geared up for the fall. We're getting ready for the June Men's Ministry Month, the Iron Sharpens Iron June's Ministry Month. That is
Yeah,
taking a lot of work to get that done. That's going
yeah.
to be the whole month of June. You can go to ironsharpensiron.net and see and find that. But it's going to be over 140 seminars right now. I mean, it's
Right.
probably a lot of more than that right now. And it's like 80 speakers, 75, 80 speakers, different speakers. And you can either choose tracks or you can choose the whole thing. If you have I know, Mike, you went in and set up a code, Cape Fear Men. So if
Hmm.
you use Mike's code, if you go in, you automatically get a 50% discount. So, if it's $19 for one track, it automatically goes to $9.99 if you use
Hmm.
Mike's code. So, go to Iron Sharpens Iron, click on the box, join a group, and go down to Cape Fear Men, click on it, join Mike's group, and you get to join this thing. And the best part is what we're really liking about this is that just because it's Sunday night at 7 o'clock, say it's a Man and His God, for example, track, you don't have to watch it that night. You can watch it any other time that's convenient to you. And that's one reason why we set it up this way, because we did one back in November that you had to be on at that particular time. And it just was so inconvenient for a lot of
Yeah,
guys and a lot
yeah,
of, so,
yeah.
yeah.
I understand. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm encouraging guys to be a part of that in our everyday activity. In fact, you were talking about the Cape Fear Men code. There it is, right there. So you
Yeah.
go to ironsharpensiron.net, and then when it prompts you to put in a code, that's your code right there. So feel free to use that, guys, but just I will know when you do. So
Yeah.
it's good. It's good to see guys really getting and ministering out there in so many ways and so forth. Um, what do you think men are struggling with right now? What's that? We mentioned the fact this past year, 2020, with the pandemic and everything's been tough on men. What do you think the biggest issue that men are struggling with at this time?
I think the biggest thing men are struggling with is isolation, for one thing. We've already kind of discussed that, but I think the other thing that men are dealing with is that we, as men's leaders, as churches, as whatever you want to call it, we have not taught men how to handle the things of life, like
Mm,
conflict and anger and
mm,
the power of their words, the power of their thoughts, the things that men deal with. Change. Oh my gosh, change is a monster one.
mm,
We haven't taught men from the pulpit or men's groups, small groups, whatever you want to call them. We have taught men how to do fathers and husbands and grandfathers and things, which is all of that's all important. Okay. I'm not saying we don't stop teaching that, but we haven't really taught men how to handle conflict, how to handle, anger in relationships and things like that. And one thing that I hear over and over again is through all of this COVID stuff, it's just really gotten out of hand. A lot of these little bug things has just gotten out of hand. And, I had a guy call me the other day and he says, I'm just struggling. And we were talking, we sat down and I wrote the word conflict down the page, down a piece of paper, and says, look, man, let's put a word to all of this. So like the C, I told him, I says, a conflict doesn't have to turn into a combat. Okay. So the first C is combat. It doesn't have to turn into it, and so we went down and we started talking about those things. And I just really have just really, that's kind of been my focus of the teachings that I've been doing here lately is helping men, giving them tools on how to handle these things that pop up that stir up problems in the home and problems with their kids and at work and everything else. And it's just, I don't know about you, but it just seems like we've just got a lot more angry people today.
Yeah, we do. We do.
And we just need to really help guys understand that, you got to depend on God. You got to get up in the morning and one of the things that I love to say is proper preparation prevents poor performance.
Yeah.
If you get up in the morning and you do the right thing, the chances of you performing through the day is going to be a whole lot better. But when you don't do the right thing in the morning, you've already give Satan that step, that foothold, that place where he can just start working, And so, I don't care if you contact Mike and get some good apps for your phone. Read a couple of verses in your Bible a day. Start out with something. If you start it off the right way with something. So I just really think that's kind of the missing link of where men are today. And I think the other thing too, that men need to get their voices back. We've got a lot going on and we need men that are willing to speak up, to say, no, we're not going to live that way. We're not going to do that in my family. I'm not going to stand for that, and I did a virtual men's breakfast on Saturday, and I logged on about 7:15 just to see, make sure everything was set up, and they were back there cooking, and that was the first virtual breakfast I've ever cooked at. And I told the guys,
how did that work?
I didn't have to clean up. It was no cleanup, man. It was so cool. The pancakes, the eggs, the bacon. I mean, it was just so cool. And I didn't even have to do the first dish, And but I told them, I told them on Saturday, I says, the sad part is that if you're not getting something, you're not going to grow.
Yeah.
And so we need to get men back into devos. We need to get men back into quiet times. Start where you start on something small and let God do the rest of it.
Yeah. I did I do another podcast besides just this one where we're interviewing people. We're talking about men's ministry moments, about 5-minute podcast. And a few months ago, I think right at about the beginning of the year, I did podcasts on having a devotional time and some of the ideas that you could do that. So guys, if you're listening to this and you're interested in that, go out there and go to kforyourmen.net, click on their podcast, and then do a search going back a few months, and you'll find something talking about developing a devotional time. And even one where I got three other guys on, we had a panel discussion about why it's important to have a devotional, and it's probably one of my highest viewed podcasts that I've done. This will probably be the next highest one after we get through with this.
And I watched both podcasts, and guys, I really strongly suggest Mike gives some good tools on just how to have a simple quiet time. And you know, you really need to start your day off the right way.
You do. You absolutely do. And it's not hard to do. It's not hard to do.
No.
It does take discipline, but once you develop that discipline, you'll miss it. It's just like I was telling somebody over this past weekend. I was teaching a class this weekend, and I made the comment that Friday was a tough day for me, basically, because I had to be somewhere very early in the morning, which threw out my routine. I didn't get into my quiet time corner right away. I did later on in the day, but because it threw my routine off, I felt like something was missing, until I was able to get there. So yeah, guys, I would third to that.
And one other things too is that I have on my phone, it comes in at 6 a.m. in the mornings. That way it's there, but I do the verse of the day from the Bible. It gets sent to me every day, and it's just a verse of the day. And the reason that I do it so early is that way when I turn my phone on, there's already something there just in case, because I do have days just like you talked about, Mike, that, you get up and it's one thing scheduled after another, but at least I get something until I can get some more.
Yep. There's tons of stuff out there now that men can tap into to help them out with a daily devotion. It's just unreal. I cannot list them all in my podcast. I cannot list them all on the website. There's just no way I can do that. Right. All you got to do is go out there and look and search, and you can
absolutely. And I want to say, if you need help, send Mike an email and say, hey, send me your top 5.
Yeah.
Or something. I mean, don't just, send an email.
I'm gonna throw up your email too, if you don't mind. I'm gonna throw that up there right now. So tell guys you can reach out to Rex for that same thing, and I'm sure he will be glad to do that too. That's in case you can't really read it since it's all one word. It's greater yes at gmail.com. So you can get Rex, and I'm sure he'll reach out to you on that. And then for me, you can reach out this way, mike.salen@capefearmen.net. Either one of us will help you out in that area and be glad. I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
I got in my hand here one of your little books talking about napkin method for coaching men.
Absolutely.
Maybe guys can't see that real well or something like that. It is a great little tool, guys. And Rex, you have amazed me since I've known you, how you will take a word and you will make it an acronym for every letter that's in that word. Talk about that a little bit, how that came about and how guys can use that really in their ministry to men.
I've just learned that a lot of guys, they don't remember messages. They don't remember sermons. They remember parts and pieces of it, which is good, which is awesome. But the thing that I like about an acronym is that you're using words. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've learned about men is that they'll remember something that impacts them. So if you use an acronym like conflict and you're breaking it down and you're going down the page, not every letter may fit the guy at that particular moment, but there may be a letter or two that hits the guy right on top of this, right on his head. And he goes, and I tell the guy at the end, I ask him, I said, hey, which letter stood out to you the most today? Let's start working there. And so it gives you a starting point as you disciple men. One of my things that I love to do is I get together with guys throughout the week and have cups of coffee. Mm-hmm. Call it man-to-man coaching, call it man-to-man discipleship. I don't care what you call it, but it's about helping men grow. Mm-hmm. And like I said earlier, we have too many guys that are trying to do life alone. So ask a guy. We did a study back in Iron Sharpens Iron back in 2019, and I was going to use it in 2018, and I was going to use it. 2019. I was going to use it in 2020. But we did a study on as we were doing men's ministry seminars at Iron Sharpens Iron, and we were asking the guys, asking millennials and young guys mostly, said, what is the biggest thing you're looking for in your life? And it was funny because the same thing kept coming up over and over again is we're looking for an older man that will coach us, that will mentor us. You know, we have this thing in our churches is we have a lot of guys running around that's got gray hair or no hair, and they're going, well, you know, the younger generation and all this other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Don't fall for the lies. Don't.
Oh, yeah.
We found out that 6 out of 10 millennials and high school, college age kids were looking for somebody over their 50s to mentor them, to coach them. And so we took it even further and we said, okay, what are you looking for out of that relationship? And there are 4 things that came up. The first one is we want somebody we can build a relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of these kids that are growing up, their dads were working 70, 80 hours a week to make ends meet. And when he came home, he wasn't really in the house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they wanted a relationship. They wanted somebody that was accessible to them. They wanted somebody that they could contact, that they could call, that they knew would be there.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing that they said they wanted is somebody that would walk with them and not try to fix them. Give them advice, you know, and not try to fix them. And here's the one that really blew my mind is they said, we don't stop preaching to us. We don't need to hear another sermon. We need to see some sermons. You know, so it was stop preaching at me and talk with me. Mm-hmm. And I've learned over time that, you know, it's amazing. I was going to do a men's training up in Connecticut up there, and I had a pastor of a church. He called me and he says, hey, what are you doing on Friday night? I said, nothing. I said, you know, training's tomorrow. And he said, would you come over and talk to a group of guys for me? I said, sure. So I went to his church and I said, what do you want me to talk about? He said, I'll tell you when you get here. And I'm like, oh boy. You know?
Was he afraid was he afraid you weren't going to show up if he told you?
I don't know. I don't know. But I was like, okay, you know, be ready for what comes out of my mouth, you know? So I walk in the room and there were 13 guys, including him, sitting at the table. The youngest guy sitting at the table was 68 years old. Mm. I sat down at the table. They had tables pulled together. Every guy had some space and things like that. And I sit down and the pastor goes, he says, this group of men, they have been here for a long time. These are the guys that I trust. He says, but we have a problem here. We're not reaching the younger generation. And I want you to tell these men how to do that. Wow. And I sit down with them and I says, how many of you like to have coffee? I said, something happens amazing over this coffee right here. Okay. Absolutely. I said, but the problem is it starts with you. I said, so you have 2 services in your church and most of you probably go to the first service. Am I correct? And they said, well, we all go to the first service. I said, well, there's the problem. I said, the next problem is as soon as your service is over with, you rush out so you can beat the Methodists to breakfast, don't you? And they cracked up laughing, you know, and I said, but really, I mean, the thing is that you don't hang around. You don't hang around. You don't hang in the lobby. I said, what would it look like if you got a cup of coffee and you stood there as the next service was coming in and you started chatting with these people and all of that? And then I had a couple guys speak up, well, you know, that's just not my style to walk up to somebody. I said, there are other ways to do it. Hold the door. They got people coming in that's got kid carriers and everything else. Stand at the door, and as they come in, go, hey, morning. You know, over time, you'll see the conversation start growing. And so about a month later or so, the pastor from the church called me and he goes, it's unbelievable what's happening. And I go, that's awesome. These guys took what we said and they started hanging around. And then when the other service started, they would all leave. But they started building relationships. They started having breakfast. They started having coffee with these other guys.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is guys, God has given you all kinds of tools and all kinds of steps and all kinds of programs and everything else, but there's nothing that beats the method that Jesus did.
Mm-hmm.
Find a man, call the best out of him, and send him to do it again.
Absolutely. Yeah. I call it tapping them on the shoulder,
Yes, yes,
it's a metaphor about it, being intentional and inviting a man to join you for something, to join you for a coffee, join you for lunch. I mentored one of my mentors, and I think you knew him too real well, Rex, Jeff Kasaya,
yes,
uh,
yep.
burned that into me. Basically, he really
Oh yeah.
burned that into me,
Yep.
and talking about just go and invite them to go to coffee, have coffee with you, and
Yep.
you will see great rewards coming out of that. And I've got a book coming out later on this summer, and I talk quite extensively about that. So I
Hmm.
wholeheartedly agree with you on that.
Yeah.
It's so important, so important.
Yep.
Rex, we're coming up on time, man. We could continue this
Okay.
conversation for hours. You and I have talked. It seems like 3 or 4 times a day sometimes
Yeah.
when we got things going on, and but we've got to draw this to a close. But I want to throw it to your lap about the one thing. And I know we talked about a lot of things today, but
Mhm.
maybe it's something different than what we talked about. But that one thing that you think we ought to speaking to men's lives today that they can take away from this particular conversation we're having.
I think men just need to understand is God has put something amazing inside of them, and it may not be standing on platforms. It may be something simple as some little small little ministry,
Mm-hmm.
but I just believe we need to start calling men up instead of beating men up.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really think that when churches and men's ministries take this coaching stuff serious, you don't have to always do programs. You've just got to get men together with a bigger purpose
Absolutely.
and get them into, one thing that I've learned is when a man finds value, you cannot drive him away. And
Oh,
that's the
absolutely.
problem that we're always in our men's groups and we're allowing Mr. Smith to come in and
Yeah.
burp over everybody
Yeah.
instead of staying focused, instead of staying on topic and talking to Mr. Smith at the end.
Yeah.
We're killing our own men's groups as opposed to doing what men's groups really are supposed to be doing. And
Yeah.
I just really can't say enough is that we need men who will have breakfast, who will have coffee. One thing that I've learned a long time ago is that if one man reaches 3 men in 1 year, that's 9 men. Okay. And at the end of 1 year, he sends those 3 men out. And those 3 men do the same thing and keep this thing passing down. Did you know in 5 years, that's 284 men that have been reached all because of that one thing? All
Wow.
because of that one meeting. Now, let's be serious, okay? And let's be realistic. Let's say a third of the men stick.
Mm-hmm.
That's 89 men that now are on fire for what God's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about your church, but there's a lot of churches that could use 89 men that are doing the right things.
Amen. Yeah, and that's you hit on something right there because when I started in men's ministry many years ago, I was a local church men's ministry director. Um, I was disappointed when we didn't have 100 people showing up for Saturday morning breakfast. I
Mhm.
was disappointed, and it took me some time to realize that really men's ministry is about one man on one man, and when you do that model that Jesus taught himself, where he went and tapped 12 men on the shoulder, and then 11 of those guys followed through with him basically, and changed the world. He didn't go after
Yep.
hundreds or thousands of people. He just went for 12 men. One chose not to follow him, and those other 11 did the same thing. and we see the result of that. And you just shared those numbers a minute ago, how quickly that can multiply.
And just look at what he did. He simply walked with them. He taught them. He listened to them. He related to them. He stood with them. He met them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do anything that was like, he just did the simple stuff.
Simple stuff.
And that's all we need to do as men's leaders is teach men how to do the Jesus method again.
Amen.
And so one other thing too, before we close, I just want to challenge the guys to come to Iron Sharpens Iron, Mike. I mean, I know it's a one-day event. It's a long day, but guys, I'm just telling you, you're going to get a chance to hear from two keynote speakers. You're going to get a chance to go into breakouts that you get to choose which ones you go to and the topics that you go to. I know I'm doing one on fatherhood tune-up and a grandfather tune-up. I know other guys are doing forgiveness and anger, and there's all kinds of topics that's going to be talked about that day.
Yeah.
I just want to, in my closing keynote is in September, I'm doing Awaken the Warrior. Guys, I'm going to tell you what, there's a warrior inside of you that God is waiting to awaken. And when that warrior awakens, men, that is something awesome. October 1st and 2nd, I'm going to do What If? What if today was your last day? What would your legacy look like?
Wow.
Guys, don't miss these Iron Sharpens Iron. It's a chance, like Mike said earlier, to come and worship with these guys, to spend a day with them. Just guys who have the same heart. So just really take it serious and look forward to seeing you there too.
Amen. You can go out there at kfearmen.net and you can find out about those two conferences, one in Richlands, North Carolina on September 25th, and then in Wilmington, North Carolina on October 2nd. And Rex and I will also be together in Monroe, North Carolina on September the 11th, working with the North Carolina Baptist on Mission Men's Ministry with a conference that'll be very similar to the Iron Sharpens Iron conference up there. So you can go out to the North Carolina Baptist on Mission website and find out about that if you're interested in that area. If you happen to be up in the Monroe, Charlotte area of North Carolina. Rex, I thank you for joining me today. It's been great conversations, and I hope we can do this again, especially as we get closer to the fall session and we begin to ramp up the actual conference day. And for those of you that are listening, just to let you know that I am hoping to have just about every one of our keynote speakers and all of our breakup speakers on the podcast at some point throughout the summer. So you'll get the chance to meet them and know who they are. And if you want more information about Man Up Ministries, you can just go to manupministries.net. You can find all about that ministry that Rex oversees. You can reach Rex at greateryes@gmail.com. For me, if you're interested in the Cape Fear Men, just reach out to capefearmen.net and we can find out some information, or you can actually email. I'll give you an easier email to remember, which is capefearmen@gmail.com. Rex, like I said, I thank you for joining us today. I look forward to continuing to work with you. For those of you who are joining us, be sure to check out our podcast on capefearmen.net and being able to find all the stuff that we're doing. But for now, this is Mike Sandlin, and thank you with Rex Tignor, and we thank you for joining us today on Intentional Conversations with Mike Sandlin. God bless.
Bless you.